Hey everyone, welcome to Behind the Headlines, Journey of Southeast Asia's Climate Journalist, brought to you by Climate Tracker Asia. We're super excited you're here with us today, and this isn't just your regular panel. We are taking you behind the scenes of what it's really like to be a climate journalist in Southeast Asia. We're all Climate Tracker fellows, including myself. So this is a bit of a reunion for all of us, and we can't wait to share the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Whether you're someone who is passionate about climate or just curious about what it takes to tell these important stories, we hope you'll get inspired. We've got some amazing journalists from across the region who are here to share their experiences. So let's jump right in. Let me introduce you to our panel. These are some of the most dedicated and creative climate journalists you will ever meet, and we're all part of the Climate Tracker family. From the Philippines, we have Gea Kabiko. Representing Indonesia is Karishar Kafki, or we call him Kuka. And joining us from Malaysia is a peer of mine, Ashley Yong. From Vietnam, we have Trang Do. And last but definitely not the least, from Thailand, we have Nicha Wachpanik. So all of our panels are doing groundbreaking work, and you are about to hear the real stories that happens behind the headlines. So I'm going to pass on the floor or the screen more to be more accurate to Gea first. Gea?
Okay, hi. Good morning from this side of the world. I'll just share my screen. Share screen. Okay. Okay. Okay, you can all see my screen. Um yeah, so good morning, good afternoon and good evening for my friends back in the Philippines. So my name is Gea Kabiko. Hi, that's me. I'm a Filipino journalist covering climate change and environmental issues through the lens of social justice. I was a reporter for philstar.com, the online news outlet, the newspaper in the Philippines, until my resignation in June 2024. So during my time at Philstar, I led the creation of the climate and environment subsection in the newsroom. So I also support and guide young storytellers as a mentor here at Climate Tracker Asia. So yeah, this is me. Started at the bottom. Now we're here. I mean, still not at the top, but definitely a lot of improvement from my first story. For my first environmental related story. So this recovering the Philippines forest cover, it's my first environmental story. I still don't know why my editor assigned this to me because at the time I was so interested with human rights and I really wanted to write about education because my mom's a teacher. So I just wanted to like give back, I guess. But yeah, every time I see this headline and every time I see this story, I still cringe. Definitely not my best work, but this just goes to show, I guess, that I've grown a lot since my first ever environment related story. And this shows that there's hope for improvement for everyone who's just starting out. So the next story, this is the story that changed my life. I know it sounds cringy. Sorry if you can hear um there's a truck outside my apartment, but anyway, so this story really changed my life. This is about the social and environmental cost of a massive airport project in Manila. This had a huge impact on me because at the time I feel like um, my job as a journalist was so routinary that I needed to like visit communities I needed to go out. So at the time, when people were talking about the Manila International Airport, they were just talking about how it's going to benefit the country, how it's going to bring in a lot of jobs, a lot of tourists, how it's going to decongest NAIA, our airport, which is one of the worst airports in the world. But um, the stories of those who are going to be affected by the construction of this airport, they weren't heard at the time, and as well as there were a few reports on the mangroves that were being cut down and how the construction of this airport will exacerbate the flooding, not only in Bulacan province but also in nearby areas such as Metro Manila. And yeah, since then I've been awarded like fellowships, a lot of fellowships, including the one with Climate Tracker, and yeah, I was selected to cover COP26 in Glasgow. Things that I think that's still the highlight of my career. And yeah, I went on to collaborate with um, climate journalists from Southeast Asia and actually from other parts of the Philippines, like this one. This is one of my last reports for Philstar, the Palawan folk fight for future as world scrambles for critical minerals. So I worked with a local journalist based in Palawan, and I'm gonna talk more about collaboration later, but this just highlights the need to collaborate with people who, with journalists who are in the community because they know the story more. And then um, this lofty gas plants, I collaborated with a Thai journalist, with Drang, who's going to speak later, and with an Indonesian journalist. So we investigated how the LNG build out in Southeast Asia is going to affect um, marine biodiversity in the region. So yeah. Um, okay. So yeah, this is just recently, me and my colleague at Pilstar.com, Christina Chi, won an award for a story series on how climate change is taught in Philippine schools. Judges from covering climate now called our work nuts and bolts, service journalism at its best. Crying emoji. I still get teary, I guess, whenever I read this. I guess this is just an evidence of the importance of integrating climate change into storytelling across all beats. And why do I report on climate change? I report on it because it's very scary and it's very urgent, and it affects fundamental life, such as right to life, life to health, and livelihood, health, environment, and even housing. Basically, it affects all aspects of our lives. But there's still hope, and there are a lot of stories featuring solutions that need to be highlighted. So, life update, yeah. I've recently relocated to New York to pursue a master's degree in journalism, specializing on science, health, environmental reporting. The reason why I did this um, is because I want to enhance my skills, the quality of my reporting, and the impact of my work. And hopefully, I'll come home to the Philippines as a better journalist and as a better mentor to young storytellers who want to pursue climate and environmental journalism. Okay, that's enough me. Let's go to how is it like being a journalist in the Philippines? So, unfortunately, we all know that the Philippines is one of the most vulnerable countries to the effects of climate change, like storms, sea level rise, drought, extreme temperature. And scientists have repeatedly stressed that with every increment of warming will result in heavier rainfall, more catastrophic storms, um, more intense heat wave, and other extreme that further increase the risk for human health and ecosystems. And the country's biodiversity is also under threat, mostly because of human activities, destructive developments such as dams, reclamation projects, deforestation, mining, and quarrying. Um, and the worsening climate crisis and increasing demand for commodities and resources will intensify the pressure on the environment and those who risk their lives to defend it. And just recently, a week ago, the Asia was once again named, the Philippines, sorry, was once again named the deadliest place in Asia for environmental defenders, like consistently for 11 years since Global Witness started its monitoring. And also, unfortunately, while the Philippine press has been often described as vibrant, it's among the world's most dangerous countries for journalists. For journalists, yeah. And journalists covering environmental and climate issues, especially those linked to powerful industries or criticize the government, face threat and intimidation. And in worst cases, they're being detained over fabricated charges. And in one case, someone from Palawan province was killed. Um, Fortunately, I haven't experience these types of like severe attacks, and unfortunately for our colleagues in the province, they're the ones who are frequently targeted. Okay, so challenges in reporting about climate and environmental issues in the Philippines. So the media coverage of climate change and environmental issue remains on the back burner. For some reason, media outlets still do not see themselves as important actors in educating the public about climate impacts, about environmental issues, and how this are going to affect our daily lives. Um, Although there's, well, I'll discuss it a bit later, but there's an increasing cover. I think there's an increasing coverage, there's an increasing interest, but still not enough. And when I was younger, I only like saw climate related stories whenever they're linked to whenever like a strong typhoon hit the Philippines. So it's still being, at the time, it was mostly viewed through the disaster lens. And after we count the casualties, we count the damage to infrastructure and agriculture, climate change isn't being talked about again. Um, there's also this challenge of engaging the audience. As mentioned earlier, I spearheaded the climate and environmental subsection at filter.com. And despite my best efforts, it's still hard to engage audience. Like, um, climate stories don't really translate to a lot of views. That's what I noticed. um I guess this can be attributed to the fact that even if the Philippines is one of the most vulnerable countries to the climate crisis, it's still not on top of people's mind. And ordinary folk in the Philippines have more pressing concerns that um they want to focus on, like the rising cost of commodities. What else? Like, what are they going to cook for dinner, to serve their children? And then um okay, it requires plenty of investment in talent, training, and reporting time. I want to like emphasize this, because if it weren't for grant giving organizations like a climate tracker or journalism network, I don't think I would be able to pursue um like in-depth stories on climate change and environmental issues in the Philippines. um yeah, their training really helped me know more about the science of climate change, and then what are some ways to like engage the audience. And I guess I would like to emphasize also on the reporting time, because I'm not sure if it's the same with freelance reporters, but I was a staff reporter. And since our newsroom was like short staffed, I had to take on other beats, like for a time I covered West Philippine Sea, and it really covering that and other beats and meeting a quota. It was really hard to like pursue climate and environmental stories that matter, because of course you have to do those jobs, and then sometimes I just had to work on my stories after my shift or during um weekends. But I realized that as I get older, it's hard for me to work outside like my usual work schedule. 'Cause, yeah, we're aging anyway. So good thing there are positive strides in climate and environmental reporting in the Philippines. So as I mentioned earlier, there's more interest in climate and journalist and environmental reporting. Yay! One, we facilitate a lot of fellowship programs here in Climate Tracker, and we've seen a lot of interest, especially from young journalists and even those who are still in college. Like, they really want to learn more on how to do climate reporting, how to better report climate impacts in their communities. And it's very heartwarming that a lot of people are taking interest. Like, they want to contribute to the fight against the climate crisis by using their own voice. Um, and some newsrooms also in the Philippines have started building their climate desk, like, yeah, philstar.com. And then, yeah, Rappler, they also have a climate editor and a dedicated reporter for climate and environmental issues. And even I think ABS-CBN, the biggest broadcaster in the Philippines, they have this science team, and there's a dedicated climate environment reporter there. So yeah, that's a good thing. But I guess we should also go beyond. um I feel like we need to special. I mean, I feel like all journalists also need to know more about reporting, about climate issues. There should not just be one person who reports on everything climate. Like, for example, an education reporter can integrate climate reporting in her stories, because it, as mentioned earlier, it affects every aspect of our life. And yeah, another positive stride is that journalists have started to go beyond disaster lens. Like, um, they're connecting it to other topics, like, for example, health, agriculture, especially when El Nino and like the intense heat wave hit Southeast Asia. So that's a good, I guess, progress. And then collaborations. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, um, I collaborated with a local journalist and even journalists from across the regions, and it's just um, more effective, because you're giving the bigger picture whenever you're reporting on climate issues. And I guess for my last thoughts, yeah, what can be done to, I didn't make a slide about this, but I guess for my last thoughts, what can be done to improve the reporting about their planet? Yeah, more support, more funding, basically, um to support quality climate stories. And then what else? Yeah, for I hope that more newsrooms will encourage and support their staff to specialize. And it's also important to share knowledge among staff journalists, because climate change cuts across all beats. And yeah, more funding for in-depth reporting, training, workshops, fellowships to attend big climate and environmental conference. And what else? Yeah, I guess another would be enhanced security measures, like journalists covering environmental issues should be provided additional security training or like protective gear. So yeah, I would like to end my presentation, like it took so long, sorry. That if we want to secure a livable and sustainable future, um, climate change needs sustained emphasis. It must always stay in the news cycle. So yeah, that's me. You may reach me at this email or Gaya Kabiko on Twitter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gea. And next, Kuka will be presenting from Indonesia.
Okay, thank you, Shar. Let me share my screen. All right. So yeah, Indonesia. Well, in Southeast Asia, Indonesia is, the largest country. Yay! We're the, I mean, like in geopolitical context, Indonesia is more or less the big brother. Well, we hope to be the the big brother of ASEAN, of the Southeast Asia. But just like the Spider-Man comics and movie said, the bigger what is it? The bigger the power, the bigger the responsibility, or I forget the exact word. But then, yeah, in terms of the climate crisis, Indonesia is unfortunately, a country that's mostly impacting the climate and also most impacted by the climate crisis. So yeah, I'm too excited about this, and I forget to introduce myself. My name is Kaisar Kafi. You can call me Kuka. I'm a journalist from Indonesia, based in Jakarta. I work for the Jakarta Post, the only, the only English newspaper in Indonesia. Um, I think Iggy has covered, most of the points, but I cover everything. But I'm mostly passionate about the science and climate and environment. So, here we go on the climate things. As I said, Indonesia is impacting the climate, worsening the climate crisis, and also impacted by it. We are among the top greenhouse gas emitters mostly from the deforestation and also like the forest fires. Well, aside from sending uh, the carbon and the methane to the atmosphere, we're also sending haze to Malaysia and Singapore. Sorry about that. Hopefully this year there won't be any haze. Uh, but yeah, and then we're also still a big coal users. Go coal, no need to change to renewable energy. At least that's what the government think, I guess, because we have seen, so few progress on the renewable energy. And in terms of the target, we're also still aiming for about 20-ish% of the renewable energy in the national energy mix, which is really low, I guess. I mean, like the government said, we're still relying on coal for the next couple of years, or if not decades. So that's really, yeah, that's really bad for the climate, I guess. But at the same time, we're also impacted by the climate crisis. I guess yesterday I read a report saying that four cities in Indonesia is the hottest cities in Southeast Asia. Not hot, in terms of the tourism that have the best food or whatever, but hottest in terms of temperature, which means the people living there is enduring, hotter temperature for a longer time. Long hot days means more droughts, which impacted the many aspects of our life, especially the agriculture. But at the same time, what's good from Indonesia is, I think there are some times in a year where you have like a region or a province really suffering from drought, but then the other regions will be suffering from too much water, flooding, in terms of storms and other things. So that's the era that we are living now. The climate crisis really messed up everything. We have flooding, and then people needing water at the same time, which is really bad. Uh, but then that makes the science or climate or environmental journalists to play so much important role to at least communicate about the danger of the climate crisis. But there are some challenges that we are facing. Look at my face. I'm really sick of these challenges. Uh, yeah, my face at the photo at the presentation. So the challenges is Indonesia is too big. We have wait, five, I guess, five major islands. It takes a lot of energy and time to cover everything happening in every island, while the most of the journalists, especially climate and environmental journalists, or at least the the well, I can say the good ones, or the ones that getting better pay and having better skills. They're mostly based in Jakarta, like me. So it will be much harder for us to go from Jakarta to let's say to Sulawesi or to Borneo or Sumatra, where these islands are actually the most impacted by the impacts of climate crisis. Uh, and then, us climate journalists are still facing limited interest from newsroom because this is a personal anecdote, but I heard someone from a newsroom saying that, when we're talking about the stories that we want to put in a newspaper, and then we talk about, non-politic stories, which means stories not related to the elections. And then this is an editor-in-chief saying that, does anyone read non-politic stories nowadays? And he said it like he was sitting next to me when saying that, and that was really heartbreaking for me because that just reflects that there's a few interests from the newsroom, uh, from the editors to cover these stories, cover these issues, and then put them in the outlet, which is really sad. I mean, like, okay, so yeah, my work won't be seen by everyone, which is sad. And then the other challenges is, yeah, like I said, a limited capacity from journalists. That makes some journalists seeing the climate crisis is only about environment or at least science, while climate crisis is not only about the environment and the science, it's also about human impacted by it in many aspects like food, health, or I don't know, maybe lifestyle. Even you can lose your coffee because of the climate crisis, which is really scary. I guess I'm not a coffee drinker, but my partner is a coffee drinker, and then it must be really devastating for her to to lose the coffee. So yeah, but then I'm trying. The things are bad. The meme of a puppy sitting in a burning building saying this is fine. Uh, I'm that puppy, but I'm trying to find the positives. So there are some progresses made, like by my outlets, Jakarta Post. We're still trying to push some climate stories from various angles. Like the one on the top left is written by a reporter at the Jakarta Post. Uh, she got a fellowship to go to an island off the Jakarta coast. Seeing, trying to capture these islanders' concerns that they would become climate refugees, which climate refugees is not really a popular term here in Indonesia, but I think the other part of the world has been starting to talk about people that gonna be displaced by the impacts of the climate crisis. The yeah, the bottom right is my story. It's about the illegal logging, but how the former illegal loggers, finally contribute to the to fighting the the climate crisis. Uh, the established media like Kompas, we have a very good senior climate journalist, Mas Ahmad Arif or Mas Aid. He consistently writes about the climate crisis from various angles. But there's also like yeah, what I call new media, like Project Multatuli, made by some of my former colleagues at the Jakarta Post. They're trying to cover the climate issues from the angles that or the perspectives of the the marginalized people. Like this one on the bottom left, trying to see how the climate crisis worsening the dengue fever outbreak in Indonesia, which is really common in Indonesia, unfortunately, and then threatening the children's life. And then outside the established media, outside the newsroom, we have some influencers on social media trying to communicate about the climate issues. We have this one is I call her Mbak Citra, a researcher with the energy think tank. She also writes at the Jakarta Post, but she mostly posts on Instagram or Twitter about like climate books or talking about renewable energy. And I saw her post got good engagement. And then there's another researcher. He's currently in London, Mas Ikhwanuddin. Teaching about the physics of how to make your home cooler. Make the hot weather. And then yeah, there's me at the bottom trying. I'm a newspaper reporter. I'm a newspaper journalist, but I'm trying to do some multimedia stories by producing videos. Yeah, maybe I'm not as good as a TV journalist, but I try to at least that's my effort to capture audience in various medium. And then yeah, there are still good things that we can do to push climate journalism in Indonesia. I think my points are more or less similar to Gea's earlier, but we need to push. I think we need to push more climate storytelling in various media, not only in newspaper or print or text, but also in video, audio, and I think social media is the best way to reach audience nowadays. So please, TikTokers, people who are active in Instagram, rather than just doom scrolling, please, we can collaborate, I guess, on making the climate stories on social media. And then yeah, push for more underreported themes and aspects in the climate storytelling, like health and climate justice. See if there's a village near you or near a journalist that will be impacted by sea level rise or maybe drought, that maybe push the villagers out of the village. They would become climate refugees, and I think that would be an interesting story. Well, at least for me. But we need to put human faces um, in the climate story. So people will know that climate storytelling is not only about science. It's not only about the deforested tropical rainforests or the rising sea level, but also it's also about human who's going to lose their homes, their lives, and yeah, uh, goodbye. So that's why we need to put the human face on this climate storytelling. And last but not least, collaborations between journalists, and also one thing that I'm interested to push is to we need to we've been standing in the in the what do you call it, in the castle tower, keep preaching you about, hey, climate crisis is bad, we're gonna we're doomed already. But then I realized that the journalists are so detached with the audience. We don't know what do you want to know about climate crisis. So that's why, I think the journalists and also the audience need to collaborate, or at least communicate on, hey, please tell me more about this, or hey, can you come to this place and then report on this village. I think it's they are on really grave danger. Well, maybe we cannot report on every pitch or tips that you give us, but at least that's a start. We can, yeah, we start from there, and then to create some collaborations in in doing this climate storytelling. So yeah, that's it from me. Please connect. My Instagram and Twitter is there, and also my email. Yeah, looking forward to connecting with you. Bye.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Kuka. Before we move on to the next presentation by Ashley Yong from Malaysia, I'd like to ask everyone to leave comments, leave likes on our live stream on Facebook as well as Instagram. And the next that we'll have presenting from Malaysia is Ashley Yong. Ashley, over to you.
Hello, hi everyone. I am Ashley. Thank you so much for tuning in today. It's great to be here and see all the familiar faces from the Climate Tracker team. Let me just quickly introduce myself. I'm a freelance journalist based in Malaysia, and I mostly cover environmental stories. I've been working as a journalist for about 3 years now, so still pretty fresh into this whole thing. And today I've been asked by the Climate Tracker team to share a little bit about my journey as a climate journalist here, the challenges I faced, the victories I've celebrated, and how I've evolved creatively throughout the process. Okay. So how it all began. And I think we've all heard the comments about how climate and environmental stories are boring. Newsrooms rarely pick them up, and when they do, they seem very distant and very hard to relate to. And terms like carbon emissions or coral bleaching don't really resonate with people because they can't see them. These topics feel so removed from their everyday lives, right? And how can we blame them? Because we are all too busy going on with our own lives to care about these things. But what if the stories that you're passionate about are the ones that people don't really want to hear? And that's a bit sad. So, as climate journalists, it's our job to make them more engaging, more relatable, and more impactful. So I remember my first assignment, my first travel assignment that I got to take a train and go up to Penang. So it's like a 4-hour train ride or something. It wasn't breaking news, but it's a feature of a bird painter in Malaysia. And the painter's name is Chu Beng Tiong, and he had just released a book of his watercolor paintings. Many of the birds he painted in the book were only found in Malaysia, and I thought it was a great way to showcase some of Malaysia's diversity. It's a simple story that uses the paintings of birds to link it back to the whole conservation and environmental angle. And until today, it's one of my favorite stories because it's so simple, and I worked on it. It kind of teach me that storytelling can connect people with the importance of environmental conservation. And because birds aren't abstract, you can hear them and you can see them if you pay close enough attention, and they're part of our daily lives. So stories about them are quite relatable for everyone compared to something like carbon emissions. So that trip to Penang was my first taste of journalism, and since then I've taken on even more in-depth environmental stories. And with more in-depth stories come with more challenges. And some of the major challenges I faced as a journalist includes not getting enough data or having to buy data, and difficulty securing interviews, language barriers, time constraints, and working within limited budgets. But over time, as I built more connections and networks in the same environmental space, it's a bit easier to overcome these challenges. The difficulty is still very much there, but much easier. And one example was my story on a hydro dam project, on hydro dam projects encroaching on indigenous villages in Malaysia. And this story probably took years to develop in terms of getting to know the villagers, building enough trust for them to take me to view the site and all that. So in the beginning, I really struggled to get interviews. And even until today, I don't think I've interviewed the company behind the projects. And I had to rely on public reports and interviews with the affected villagers. And yeah, to slowly build a relationship and gain their trust for quite a while. Another challenge was language, right? So the indigenous communities, they primarily speak their own native language and then a little bit of the national language Malay. And the stories we publish are always in English. So whenever possible, we try to translate these stories so they themselves can read what's been written about them. But this also depends on the resources and the budgets that we have. So good news, a major breakthrough just came 2 weeks ago when one of the indigenous villages won a court case after many years of fighting against these hydro dam projects. It was a victory that took years of persistence and grit by the villagers and the lawyers, but I like to think that the media coverage helped a little bit to share their story and also encourage other communities going through the same thing to know that the law can stand on their side sometimes. And how I told these stories is by using several tools, right? So aside from photos and text, I like to use maps. I think it helps people to visualize the scale of the projects and tells people exactly what is happening where. So, for example, this map on the left here, and the blue dots show where the hydro dam projects are at. Um, yeah, so I think it's a really handy tool to maybe kind of tell the reader because they might not know like where these places are. I also like to use infographics like this to add a bit of visual interest. I find that it makes the content a bit more engaging, and it also it's a bit of variety for the writer as a journalist to create interesting visuals like this. Um, the other ways I like to tell stories are guided walks, which is a bit of a lie because this is my first and the only time I've used this multimedia tool to help me tell a story. This was a story on a mangrove forest and bird diversity in Malaysia. Yeah, I like to write about birds. I think there's a pattern here. And this guided walk was kind of to help the readers have a virtual tour of the mangrove forest. So each pinpoint here, if you click on it, it will indicate what I saw when I was there. And hopefully people can use it as a guide when they themselves visit this mangrove forest. I don't know, it's kind of fun for me. And also social videos. I think with social media videos dominating our phones and online consumption nowadays, it's so important that us journalists have to adopt content creation techniques. For younger audiences, this kind of format is so much more engaging than a traditional article. And this screenshot is something that I did with the Climate Tracker team during our Content Creators Hub earlier this year. And the video is basically a cooking video, right? A recipe video. I'm making a pumpkin curry while I talk about how some farmers, because of frequent and intense rainfall, they're shifting to climate resilient crops to help with getting enough harvest for the season. And I believe there's going to be more content creator hub cycles coming, so you can join that if you want to learn how to make more impactful and educational content. Yeah, I think that's it for me. Yeah, where I think the future. Okay, I don't want to talk about the future of climate journalism. It sounds a bit cliche, but I do think it's about like finding new ways to reach people, and I'm always trying to use different approaches and see how we can make like stories more impactful and more relatable to everyone. So that's all for me. Thank you so much for listening. I'll pass the screen back to Ushar.
Thank you very much, Ashley. It was an interesting presentation we have so far from Gea from the Philippines, Kuka from Indonesia, and Ashley from Indonesia. From Malaysia, I'm sorry. Anyways, moving to the next presenter, we have Trang Do now from Vietnam.
Oh, yeah, yes. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how can I share my presentation, and there it is. Hello, everyone. My name is Chang, journalist in Vietnam. And I'm very honored today to be here and share with you some of my thoughts about the climate journalism in Vietnam, as well as the challenges and opportunities that come with it. Well, I mean, I've been here listening uh, my colleagues in other countries sharing their stories, and I think um, the climate journalism in Vietnam is also having a lot of in common with the journalism landscape in Philippines or Indonesia or Malaysia. So I guess what I'm about to share will overlap somehow and probably repeat some of what my colleagues already said. But well, I think it's also the status quo in Vietnam now. And first, I want to highlight a fact that in recent times, especially after Typhoon Yagi, climate change has become a topic of public concern in Vietnam. So when the typhoon struck the northern part of Vietnam, like 2 weeks ago, it not only caused severe damage, and these are just some of the pictures, a very small side of it, but it also sparked conversation about climate change. And certainly some keywords like climate change, typhoon, storm became the buzzwords in the social media, in the Google search. And this shift highlighted how timing plays a crucial role in climate journalism. And people tend to pay more attention to environmental issues during or immediately after significant events like floods, droughts, or typhoons. So, therefore, I think journalists must act quickly and seize these moments to raise awareness and drive conversations. But I also think that writing compelling, informative climate articles in Vietnam is not as straightforward as it seems. Because if you want to produce high quality story, you should be you should have a comprehensive understanding of the environmental law. Well, I'm pursuing a master in international law, but I guess others do not have to go that far to have the basic understanding of the law. But um, unlike other news topics, climate journalism often intersects with legal and political aspects. For example, regulations concerning carbon emissions, renewable energy, and disaster management are essential for if you understand the regulations related to those things, it is very um, it's also essential for you to understand the broader context of climate change in Vietnam. So if the reporter are well versed in these laws, they will have the advantage to deliver a more insightful and informative stories. Um, I I remember like 5, 6 years ago, I think before COP26, the Vietnamese public wasn't particularly concerned with environmental issues. So as like environmental journalists, usually we tended to focus on providing basic information such as weather updates or pollution statistic. Um, without delving into deeper and more challenging topics like causes behind or implications. So, as a result, there was a lack of in depth analysis and storytelling that could engage readers on a more profound level. For example, a few years ago, I could find many articles about plastic waste, mainly focusing on calling for a reduction in single-use plastic bags or promoting a greener lifestyles. But harder to find were in-depth stories delving into more challenging harder topic like direct health impacts of plastic waste or the connection between plastic pollution and climate change and their compounded effects. Um, but well, in recent times, it kind of improved. But well, um, and I think that's where we goes to the challenge of climate journalism in Vietnam. Well, I can say that climate journalism in my country is a niche field that requires higher level of specialization. Topics like greenhouse gas emissions, rising sea level, extreme weather, biodiversity, carbon credit markets, just energy transition. Well, all those terms, they are scientifically complex and not always easy to communicate to the general topic, to the general public. So journalists must find ways to translate these scientific jargon into stories that resonate with general readers. So I put here a question for um, Vietnamese journalists that how can we transform complex technical issues into a relatable and compelling narratives? So, for instance, Gare also mentioned that in one of our fellowships about LNG development in Southeast Asia, we tell the story of how coastal community struggle to adapt to the changing environment and how LNG implementation might impact their livelihood. So, by focusing on human experiences, we make the issues more relatable and create an emotional connection with our audience. It's also noteworthy that climate change is a slow moving crisis. Unlike more immediate issues, like Kuka said, political events, economic downturns, or even showbiz scandals, because its impacts are gradual and often invisible in daily life. So it makes it difficult to keep the audience engaged over a long term. So I think walking on this path, we have to be really patient to like to stick with it, I guess. And there is also challenge of combating misinformation. So climate change is a topic rife with myths and misconceptions, and I know you may hear some of it. So it's also the journalist's job to debunk this falsehood while providing accurate and timely information. So I hope this brief overview can shed some light on the complexities and the importance of climate journalism in our country. And I guess there's a lot more to say about Vietnam's climate journalism, but because of the time limit, so I will stop here and pass the mic to the next speaker. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Trang. And for the next presentation, we have Nietzsche from Thailand.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me here. I'm a little bit late and get confused with the time zone. Okay, so I can share my slide. Okay. So I am a freelance journalist based in Bangkok, and I have to say that this year Thailand has been experiencing very clear impacts from climate change. And in summer, we are facing like up to 40 degrees Celsius, and right now we are experiencing flood in many areas. And but I think that climate change is more than stories about disaster, but it involved with many issues and like international negotiation and new scientific findings. So there are so much to talk about climate change. Okay, so let me put on my slide. Okay, there is so much to talk about climate change, and we as a journalist, like, how should we find a balance in telling the stories, and so we can keep the word count right to please the editor, and as well as like to keep the reader's attention with us. So today I will share some of my experiences. As a journalist, I think we have to go through many facts and figures when we cover about climate change. And for example, these like figures, like Thailand was ranked as the ninth most affected country from weather-related loss, while we actually contribute just a small percentage of global emission. We can say that like the 24th emitter in the world among 200 countries. So I think like we are making a point here, and we as a reporter we can help give readers some ground understanding of the position our country is in when we talk about this global crisis. So I usually make a fact sheet myself that I keep updated regularly. This fact contains some of the uh, key information like this that I can make a punch line when I cover like several issues related to climate change and some national pledges. And yeah, so I can refer back to this fact sheet when I report on the issue. And as an environmental reporter, I think that our we also come upon about monitoring development projects, and because we ask the question whether nature and livelihood are at the stake of these developments or not. And so this is some of my behind the scene when I reported on coal usage in Thailand. There's an ongoing case of coal mining in northern Thailand. From the left picture, that some indigenous communities are doing some ceremony to protect the forest. And there are also cases of some coal power plant that Thai investor invested in the neighboring countries. So when I go into the communities, I usually like feel myself that I'm kind of like an anthropologist, that I go in and talk with some local communities, whether how have they been informed about the project. So I ask this question like, what do you know about climate change? What do you think about them? And also like these personal stories can help tell many like dimensions about justice. Like you can talk with them and ask them about how they accept the electricity for living so close by to these energy projects. How do they bear the impacts? Yeah, but as like our colleague Ashley talked before, I think I also faced some like barrier for accessing some sources like the private entities and also some government agencies. And when it comes to writing, I have the other challenge that I found is to find a balance between the climate change claims and to talk about human intervention. Like for example, like one of the most like concerning energy projects in Thailand is hydropower, especially on the Mekong River. And this is very complicated because this is so-called like clean energy, but it also like risks causing and leading to biodiversity loss. So I usually like write with several subheads in my article so that I can unpack this complicated layer. And so lastly, I I like telling myself when, because I'm a freelancer and I don't cover like only about climate change but also other issues as well. So I like to tell myself that being climate journalist is a long-term journey rather than just a story. So if I cannot fit everything that I want to say or explore in one story, that's totally fine. And like you just need to keep an eyes for it to look for a story idea. Like this picture, I took this picture back in 2021 when there was a widespread street protest in Bangkok. They are like pro-democracy protests, and this protester, she holding a sign saying that if the politics was good, we wouldn't face flood like this. So I make a story spark some discussion. So I would love to end my presentation that like I want to tell my colleague journalists here that uh, it's good to keep like climate change as your agenda in journalism, so you can keep reporting about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicha from Thailand. So we've heard these incredible journeys from all of our journalists across Southeast Asia. We have Ashley from Malaysia, we have Kuka from Indonesia, we have Nicha from Thailand, we have Trangdo from Vietnam, and not forgetting Gea from the Philippines. So next on the agenda is our interactive Q&A session. And now that we've heard about these incredible stories, it's your turn to ask questions. And you can drop them in the comments on Instagram or on Facebook. And we'll try to get through as many as we can in the next 25 minutes. This is your chance to actually get real advice from these journalists who have seen it all on the field and would like to share more with you. So don't be shy and send those questions in. I think we can start with Serene's first question. I think it should be for Kuka. She's curious to know how people react to the word kiamat in Indonesia, where kiamat means end of the world in Indonesian and Malay. Kuka, over to you.
Yeah, the word kiamat in the title of Mas Ahmad Arif's story or writing is interesting because I think it's common to use that in the Western media, but it's quite an orthodox method to do it in Indonesia. But as just like other climate stories, I guess it gets some attention, at least on social media when the writing was first published. But then human forgets, and then um, it just goes away. And I think the story was published late last year or early this year, and then no one is really talking about. I mean, like we're still, talking about climate here and there, but it's not really, an urgent issues in Indonesia. People are still busy talking and thinking about the politics, especially during this election year. We did have like national election and then a local election later in November, so everyone's attention is just onto the politics again. So yeah, maybe it wakes up some people, but doesn't really change anything, unfortunately.
Thank you very much for that, Kuka. And I think our next question is from Aurelia. Aurelia is based in Jakarta. So I think the question is for you again, Kuka. Aurelia works in a small newsroom which doesn't have a beat system. And sometimes it feels like her team depends on her to cover climate change and environmental stories because she's joined more trainings about this. Do you have any advice on how a small team could have the same knowledge and urgency in covering environmental issues, specifically in newsrooms in Jakarta, Indonesia?
Yeah, I think this is where climate trackers can jump in. There are a lot of fellowships and trainings out there uh, by organizations like Climate Tracker, but also like journalism professional organizations in Indonesia, like IG or uh, the Environmental Journalist Society, we call it SEAJ in Indonesia, and also SESJ, the Science Journalists Association. I think that's the very least that you can do is to at least if they have trainings or fellowships, uh, send your reporters or journalists there. The next step is to collaborate with these organizations to have trainings or maybe like an hour sharing session if they have any questions or um, interest on the climate issues. Maybe these sharing sessions or collaborations with the newsrooms can help. Yeah, I guess that's things that you can do as a small newsroom. Yeah.
You're muted, Ushar.
Oh, sorry. Thank you very much, Kuka. And I think we are hearing from an Indonesian perspective. Can we now hear from the other panel when it comes to like a Malaysian or a Thai or even a Vietnam or Philippine perspective when it comes to giving advice on how a small team can actually provide and have the same knowledge and urgency in covering environmental and climate stories?
Okay, I think I'll jump in. Yeah, so since you mentioned that you're the only one in your team who has training on climate and environmental reporting, maybe you can do some sessions like can suggest doing some sessions like during work or after work where you will share what you picked up from these programs to your colleagues. I know it's beyond um, our job description, but sometimes if they cannot send other journalists to do this, to attend this programs, maybe you can be the one who can support your colleagues, who can guide your colleagues on how to better integrate um, climate into every stories in your newsroom.
Thank you, Gaya. Anyone else would like to add in?
Well,
I
I
suppose this is a question for like for rather than a freelance journalist, it should be like a staff journalist. I mean, okay, I guess it's I would like to answer this question as well. I think it's an interesting question because like Gaya said, like if you are able and you're capable of mentoring the next person who will then gain interest and knowledge on how to cover climate and environmental stories, it's always a great benefit and also an additional value to the newsroom because I know it's a very cliche saying, but teamwork makes the dream work. Because working solely alone on climate stories can be very daunting. It can also be very very stressful when it comes, especially if you're the only one who knows how to do it. But being able to share that knowledge and bring more people on board to cover climate environmental stories is also helpful, not only for you but also for the newsroom and for up and coming journalists that may be interested in the stories that you are currently telling. So this- I'm supposed to be the moderator and I'm answering. But anyways, let's move on to the next question. Let's move on to the next question. And we have Tina from the Philippines. And her question is, as journalists, how do we stay hopeful in reporting even when the information or effects of climate change can be quite sad to read? What keeps you going as journalists? I think this question is for all. Anyone?
yeah, I think I can give some opinions. I think I mean because I feel like yeah, I'm feeling sad too. It's this question makes me remember when I'm like when we are having the typhoon striking to the cities in the northern parts, and there's a lot of disasters on the news, and everyone and the last week I feel really sad, and it's still, I mean, I think, well, yeah, there are some sad part of covering climate disasters, but it also raising the urgent fact that it's coming to us like very soon. I mean, the summer is getting hotter, and the weather is just like unpredictable, and and people died because of like certain um like natural disaster like landslides, storms, and something like that, and it makes me feel more responsible, to be ahead of the news. If we can deliver the message sooner, we can warn them of the after effects of like of what they are going to get if uh, we don't have any preparations, and we just let the disaster coming to us, it will be very sad. So I think what keeps me going is that the responsibility that once we know the information, we have to deliver it to the audience in the right way so that they can understand that the climate change is not something so far away, it's not something of your life. It's kind of visible if you are in at this time when our country is having like multiple storms coming to us. Yeah. Oh, you're
Can
muted.
I
Thank
add
you,
to
thank you very
that
much, Trang.
one?
Sorry, I keep unmuting my mic. So like, thank you very much, Trang, for that very fascinating answer to how to deal with the fatigue and sadness that comes to a lot of this climate stories that actually bring it stings you, but it also gives you a lot of passion to tell the stories. But the next question is actually from Kiana from the Philippines, and Kiana is hoping that if any one of you on the panel could shed some light on how to find a sweet spot in between being hopeful and stressing urgency.
So this question is for everyone.
Yes, this question is for everyone.
Oh,
Anyone would like to answer this?
I guess I can answer. I can answer a little bit about this question. It's a really tough question. I think most of us are all still in the process of trying to find a sweet spot, right, between um, being hopeful about the world and then um, seeing the destruction that's everywhere around us. But I think like burnout is a very real thing, but we also have to remember that there's a lot of good organizations out there and good people out there that are trying to do uh, that are trying to come up with solutions. So we do have solutions, but it's we have to have faith. Very cliche, but we have to have faith that these solutions will be brought to life, and all we have to do as journalists is to keep sharing the news and try to do a little bit better. I don't know. So maybe someone else can answer. Like my answer is not the best, but that is what I personally am doing. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna continue with that. I because I just wrote a story. I think it's gonna be published on this Sunday about like why is the climate change is worse and is uh human being behind this, and when and in the process of like finding information for my stories, I attended a conference, a conservation conference, and there's a speaker saying that um, while there's like in the world like a lot of the current conversation is about like killing people. There's a war. There's like a lot of like bad things happen in the world, and a lot of people die. And a lot of conversation is about like how we can kill more people. So the actually the conference and the conversation about climate change is about how to save more people. So I think it can be a sweet spot, like we actually covering kind of like maybe stressing and sad issues, but it's for saving more people, and it's for the better future. So I think I will quote report that and share with you.
Thank you, Trang. And the next question is from Serene. I have a question for all journalists: is how do you deal with climate anxiety and hopelessness when you're so near to these scary stories? Nisha, would you like to take this question?
Okay, so I think it's similar to like what like our colleague had said before about solution. So my I am a regular contributor to a website that we cover long form story called Hard Stories, and we try to cover and focus on people who are trying to make change about these things. So it's a solution journalism. So I think like when we cover it, like you get to talk a chance to talk with these people, and you will feel like being less hopeless with talking with them. That's like, even though like we are facing this crisis, there are some people who are trying to do something about it. Yeah. And even like journalists ourselves, I like to read like some coverages from other countries because it's really inspiring for me to like see some solutions or even like some ideas to talk about this in different ways.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Nicha. And I think our next question is from Jenna. Jenna is a fellow for the Content Creator Hub Cycle Tree. Jenna's question is, can you provide tips on how to build a regional network for collaborative climate change reporting to improve its impact and effectiveness? Yeah, would you like to take
So
this?
actually can Okay, I can add a little from my side. So actually, like the first time I joined with Climate Tracker, I joined for the virtual reporting for COP26, and I did a story about like the waste to energy protest in Thailand. And after that, because of my coverage that year, like a year later, like and a journalist in Indonesia, like he approached me and asked me for some collaboration. So, and that year, I started to do this collaboration between like journalists in Southeast Asia and Europe about to track the waste to energy investment. So, I have to say that actually, like as a journalist, it's difficult for us if like there's no like grants or something that to spark our interest to come together and form an adventure team. So, but you can like just like find some story idea and go ahead with like people and scout them through internet that like they might be potentials and want to collaborate with you. And this might also help you to like bring in some solution from other countries as well, because like in your country is like the stage of these issues might be like problematic, but when you interview sources or give some cases from other countries, you can see some solution in it as well.
Thank you very much for sharing, Nicha. And I think a little bit to add on that is obviously to be a part of Climate Tracker. This is how we are all interconnected, from Malaysia to Thailand to Philippines to Vietnam to Indonesia. So I think you're in the right place for regional networks for collaboration on climate change reporting. Do you have any more questions? Okay. Oh, we have Pop from Bangkok. Pop is also our fellow from Thailand for Content Creator Hub Cycle 3. Pop's question is, as a journalist, could you share your favorite tips on how do you do your research on stories? So this question is for all.
Yeah, maybe I can jump in on this. Uh, well, for climate stories, well, there are so many resources. I mean, like if you want to touch on the science side, you can look for the scientific journals. Um, and I think my main source, one of my main sources for climate story ideas is to connect with people working on the climate sites, like activists or researchers. um, and then from them, by talking to them, you can get potential story ideas, and then come to like events, like if like an NGO having an event, and then you can meet so many people with many different stories that you can report on. So yeah, basically just talk to people, even talk to your friends. Sometimes you can find some story ideas by talking to a friend, like a random conversation about, oh my god, my room is so hot last night. I think it's hotter than than the previous days, if not weeks or months or years. And then if there are five friends telling that their room is hotter in the night, and then maybe you can find some story ideas from there. Maybe it's about the something you call urban heat island, or it's just the night is getting hotter and hotter in Jakarta or in Bangkok. So yeah, basically, talk to everyone to get those ideas.
Yeah, and if they're your friends, especially, it's easier because you already have 5 interviews in hand.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, so the next question is from Janard from the Philippines. Janard is also a fellow from Content Creator Hub Cycle 3. His question is, in your perspective, what types of climate stories are most likely to resonate with mainstream media audiences? And how can these stories be effectively presented in traditional format? Because he believes that people still watch television and listen to the radio. Yes, they do. But how can this be more effectively presented in traditional format?
I guess okay, I'll jump in. Yeah, I agree that a lot of people still listen to radio in the Philippines. A lot of folks in my home do that. And one good thing to do is you have to connect it really to like what their concerns are. Like for example, old people listen to um radio, and you have to connect it to like how can extreme heat exacerbate, like how old peoples are more um vulnerable to heat stress. Like recently I've read this study that older women are actually more susceptible to heat stress than age matched men. So maybe you can do a story on that, and surely a lot of like those who still listen to traditional formats like radio can relate to that, just related to their to like every part of their life. But I think what's really important right now is to be where your audience is. Like you have to identify which really do you want to be your audience. And I'm glad that you're in the Content Creators Hub, because here in Climate Tracker we're really pivoting to that content creation, and we've seen that it's very effective. Well, just our best example, Celine Murillo, like a lot of people are now interested in like conservation, biodiversity, because of the educational TikToks and like Instagram reels that she posts on Facebook. So yeah, you just have to identify which sector of the society you want to um, target for your stories.
Yep. Well, I'm speaking from a broadcast background where I'm very confidently sharing that TV is a industry that's no longer that interesting or viable. That's why a lot more TV and broadcast news networks are taking their stories on either YouTube or on social media. That's why they have concurrent lives on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook. So I guess when it comes to telling the story more effectively, obviously stories that would hit home really hard, like if anything related to politics, current happenings, like the typhoon, for example. These are the kind of stories that would capture attention because it's not only impactful visually, it's also impactful because it's happening to real people in real time. So I guess I'm answering from a broadcast journalist perspective. Do we have any more questions? Okay, so I guess we are done for today. For I'd like to thank each and every one of our panel who is with us today. Do you guys have any other final words for those who are tuned in? Yes, start with Ashley.
Yeah. Hello. So I don't know who's out there watching this, but if you're like an aspiring environmental journalist, it's a really fun and rewarding job. It does come with your climate anxieties and stuff like that, but then you also get to meet a lot of people who are doing good work. So if you're considering being a journalist in this field, come and join us. We probably need more people to write about environmental stories. So everyone is welcome to be a climate journalist. Yay.
Trump.
Um, well, I think the fun part of covering climate story is that from my perspective, I care more about the rain and the sun, and I mean, in the trees, and it feel like connected with my current life. And I think it's not something so far away. You can find it like immediately. Like I think I have a lot of nights that I'm just lying on the bed and I'm thinking like what I'm writing next tomorrow, what I'm going to write about like some animals or like some trees or like rains and stuff like that. And probably people may think that it's weird, but I mean, just being weird somehow makes your life different, I think.
All right, thank you very much, Trang. Nietzsche, would you like to share final words?
I think like climate change is like the issues in our agenda, issues in our like uh, century as a journalist that we cover it. So I think like it's what I presented before, that like keep climate change as part of your journalism agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Nietzsche. Yeah?
Okay, I'll make it quick because I yap a lot. Anyway, Nietzsche mentioned it already that it's the greatest existential crisis of our time, and it needs um, not only action from government, businesses, but also from our front as journalists. So if you're not a climate journalist right now, you should be, because it's the biggest story of our life. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Gaya. And Kuka, final words from you.
Yeah, I think everyone has said everything. So maybe I'll jump in on the finding that sweet spot of climate journalism sometimes can be a stressful uh, job because learning that we are facing our kiamat and is really not really it's not really great. So I guess I just want to share some suggestions from one of my mentors. Find hobbies, to sometimes distract your the feeling of doom and gloom from reporting climate stories. Uh, like me, like doing laundry is my hobby. So do your laundry, play music, or play games, read books, or whatever your hobby. So you can keep continue doing this important job of communicating the the dangers and also but the potential solutions for the climate crisis. So good luck.
Thank you very much, Kuka. Thank you very much to each and every one of our panel speakers, Ashley Yong, Trang Do, Nietzsche from Thailand, Gea, as well as Kuka from Indonesia. What an amazing session. Thank you so much to our incredible panelists for sharing their stories, and to all of you for tuning in and asking such great questions. I hope our sharing tonight showed you that anyone can be a climate reporter, whether you're out there in the field or sharing stories from your community. So keep being curious, keep pushing boundaries, and most of all, keep telling stories that matter. Thank you very much again, everyone, and make sure to follow us for more events and updates, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.